If you crack first, Dave, it won't make you any less of a man.
I'm nowhere near cracking.
Neither am I, my friend.
Dave. And Matthew, what is it now? For God's sake, no one's smoking, okay? But nothing! You know what we need around here is an anti-whining ordinance. So just sip your sniveling little lip and haul your skinny ass out of here!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's been one hell of a week at DC Comics. Obviously, they got all the big headlines with John Kent coming out as bisexual in Superman Son of Kal-El #5 coming up in the not-too-distant future. Should be in January, I believe. Obviously, I did a video on Superman the Authority finale. We got the Trans Omach giving out their prodads. What it was, we had that stupid fight with Midnighter. There's even another comic book. I didn't even want to get into it when we talked about I Am Batman, because there were some good quality moments in that comic book. There's some real cringy moments there too. But the bad news keeps coming. Now we have some preview information regarding what's coming out in January. Obviously, the full solicitations for DC Comics in January 2022 should be out probably tomorrow, so I'd expect to see a full solicitation video this weekend. And I think we might be getting Marvel this week as well. But hopefully it's next week, so I don't have to do two of those videos in the same week. I can kind of spread them out. So definitely be expecting to see the DC video this weekend. And, well, what could go worse for Justice League under Brian Michael Bendis, or the Legion of Superheroes under Brian Michael Bendis? A Legion of Superheroes Justice League versus book by Brian Michael Bendis. We've also got a writer change on Catwoman, one of the few comics at DC that ongoing that I would actually recommend people read right now. Ram V's been knocking it out of the park. The Replacement, Tini Howard, not quite at that quality of a writer, if you ask me. I've got words to say about that one. So we'll cover the train wrecks first, but it's not all bad news. There's a couple of things I'm looking forward to. We got Batman the Night coming from Chip Zdarsky, one of my favorite writers out there. We've also got a special plus-size Detective Comics coming out. I guess 1050 is another fake milestone that they're going to celebrate with the plus-size issue. And then we will be getting a new Peacemaker one-shot from a very accomplished writer that, I don't know, Garth Ennis is either hit or miss these days, but this one I feel like he probably is going to do an okay job on. So let's get right into you're here for the shit show, right? Let's talk about Brian Michael Bendis, Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes #1, and this is what DC Comics had to say. Eisner-winning writer Brian Michael Bendis returns to Legion of Superheroes in this monumental 6-issue event miniseries. 1,000 years in the future, a Legion of Superheroes comes together to dedicate their lives to recapturing the great age of heroes of the 21st century. When the heroes discover that reality is falling to a great darkness in both times simultaneously, the Justice League and the Legion of Superheroes must team up to stop it all. But what is the connection between the secrets of the new Golden Lantern, or the Gold Lanterns, and the coming of the Great Darkness? #1 of 6 goes on sale January 11th. Art by Scott Godlewski. How many times does Brian Michael Bendis need to fail at DC Comics before they say we've had enough? We know he doesn't have an exclusive anymore. He's taken his Jinx World over to Dark Horse. Why can't Brian Michael Bendis just take himself over to Dark Horse? DC Comics are unreadable enough as it is to be giving somebody as spent and so far past their sell-by date as Brian Michael Bendis any type of event series it's unconscionable at this moment. He had Event Leviathan, a Batman and Superman-led event series. It bombed. He's got Checkmate. Do you even remember that it's coming out right now? Because no one cares. They all checked out on all this Leviathan stuff that he set up, within Action Comics or whatever. Right now, he's only writing the Justice League. And you're like, well, Brian Michael Bendis, perhaps, if he wasn't writing 10 comic books at one time, could do a good job. No, it's completely unreadable. All the heroes have been kind of pushed to the side for his own creator-owned work, Naomi, that he's trying to get over. And it's not as bad as what he did in Legion of Superheroes prior to Justice League, but it's still terrible. Like what he was doing on Legion of Superheroes, especially with the opening page, where it was literally word vomit every single issue. And it was the most slow-paced execution of interesting ideas I've ever seen in my life. The ideas behind his Legion of Superheroes are actually pretty good. He just can't write anymore. I wish I could say the ideas behind Justice League were any good. They're actually worse, but he's not quite writing as bad because the team itself isn't 30 characters. He's only been reduced down to like 5 or 6 in Justice League. But both of them they're both terrible. And the fact that DC Comics are giving him another opportunity to write a major event series just tells you everything you know about DC Comics. It's not going to get better anytime soon. And I feel bad for Scott Godlewski. He's not a bad artist. He's not my favorite artist in the world, but he doesn't deserve to be saddled with a Justice League Legion of Superheroes crossover series that should sell like gangbusters and likely will. In issue 1, it'll do like 75, 80 or something like that. And then it'll immediately tank once people realize that the story sucks. And I guarantee you, 6 issues, he can't get through a story in this. It's just going to be the setup for a sequel. The guy, I feel bad. I know Brian Michael Bendis has been through a lot lately. Obviously, he had his health issues and everything, but he just needs a break. There's a reason Marvel jettisoned his ass, and the reason that DC Comics keeps employing him is just, it's beyond me. Am I interested in a Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes like crossover series? Absolutely. That sounds like something I should be very, very interested in. 2 team books that I absolutely like. But the writing, the creator is just awful. I don't know what else Brian Michael Bendis has to do to DC Comics to prove to them that he's absolutely incapable of writing anything of any quality or substance these days. It's not a shocker that this is coming out. Obviously, he had hinted at it previously, but there you go. If you needed more confirmation that DC Comics is DOA these days, there you go. If you needed more confirmation, we can go to Catwoman 39, as I mentioned before. Ram V has Catwoman humming. He's been fantastic. He took over, I believe it, was it 25? He took over somewhere around there. He's got one of the few comics in Fear States that's actually worth reading right now, doing a great job. So what do? You yank the title out from underneath him. Now, Catwoman likely is never going to be a big seller, and Ram V isn't the household name he deserves to be quite yet. But this change, unless they are giving Ram V a big-ass series, like something really important, which I absolutely have no faith that DC Comics is going to do that, this change is awful. And this is what they have to say about Catwoman 39 in the release. Meanwhile, Catwoman has returned to Gotham City from Alleytown and is back doing what she does best, stealing from crime bosses and looking fine while doing it. New ongoing series writer Tini Howard makes her DC debut on Catwoman. God. As Selena Kyle goes into one of Gotham City's most secure underground clubs in disguise to steal blackmail material. Oh, Catwoman, hiding in plain sight in 5-inch platform heels at a gathering of Gotham's crime elite while surrounded by all the beautiful women and other shiny things to look at. What could possibly go wrong? Art by Nico Leo. It hits shelves January 18th with Catwoman 39. I've seen interviews with Tini Howard. She seems like a very pleasant person. She, seems to like comic books and all that stuff. And I've never seen her go out of her way to trash people or disparage herself or her company with the way that they present themselves and the way that they treat customers. So that stuff's off the board. She's just a bad writer. I mean, not bad. I mean, fucking terrible. Tini Howard made a Thanos miniseries boring. How do you make Thanos one of the most interesting, powerful, compelling villains in all of fiction boring? I don't know. Tini Howard did it. She should do fucking Substack classes on this. How to make cool stuff not cool. And that's exactly what's going to happen at Catwoman 39. The next time Tini Howard writes a good, series of the big two will be the first. This DC Comics is just tanking and tanking and tanking. And they're bringing over not all of the worst, because they brought over a couple of good creators from Marvel. But man, they are bringing over a shitload of terrible ones at that. If you've read Tini Howard's Excalibur, I'm sorry. It's a painful experience. I had to go through it too. I hope you jumped off before I did. If you had to go through Ten of Swords, the event book, that she co-wrote with Jonathan Hickman, i.e. absolutely destroyed by incorporating all this stupid otherworld nonsense that was going in Excalibur, and absolutely destroyed all the cool stuff that Jonathan Hickman had been creating in House of X Powers of 10 with the original Four Horsemen, the reconciliation of sorts of Arakko and Krakoa and the big conflict that was going to be. It was rendered impotent, boring, and unreadable by the trash that was forced into it by Tini Howard. And I don't know why. Jonathan Hickman is a fantastic comic book writer. He's not for everybody, but he executes what he wants to do, and he's very consistent. Why he thinks Tini Howard is a good talent or somebody that he wants to be associated with, obviously he did that event probably at his own free will, and he did bring Tini Howard along with him over to Substack. He also brought Ram V as well. I don't know why he keeps giving this person his seal of approval, because Tini Howard has proven nothing over the last 4 or 5 years at Marvel other than they cannot write good comic books. Just the most boring, filled crap comics you've ever read. And Catwoman 38, that's your jumping off point. You go to your comic shop and you say, at Catwoman 38, I want Catwoman off my pull list. That's the last issue I want, because at 39, when Tini Howard comes on board, guaranteed lead pipe lock of the month, it's going to be absolute garbage. And especially, there used to be a time where you could take bad writers from Marvel, bring them over to DC, and that would kind of rehabilitate them, and then the stories would be better. But their editorial staff's been absolutely decimated, and you can't have that expectation that people can move from Marvel to DC and improve anymore. You're going to get the same shit writer that you had at Marvel, unfortunately. I.e., look at what Tom Taylor has become now that deceased is over. It's over, baby. Now let's get into the good news, and there is some good news. And I did mention DC isn't only, sifting through the crap particles at Marvel to discover the new talent. They did bring over one very good writer, Chip Zdarsky, as the headliner on Batman Urban Legends with his Red Hood story with Blue Hood. Was a fantastic story. There's an issue I had here there. That's perfectly fine. Great story. What he's doing with his Daredevil ongoing with Marco Cicchetto over at Marvel Comics, fantastic. What he was able to do before Fantastic Four relaunch with Marvel 2-in-1 was fantastic. And now he's coming over to DC. Once again, he's not getting an ongoing, which I find disappointing, but I guess according to Chip Zdarsky himself, he's avoiding those kind of things for less editorial oversight and more freedom to do what he wants. He's going to be doing Batman the Night #1. Well, it's going to be I think a 6-part miniseries. I'm going to read this, but I will tell you before I get into the details from DC Comics that this seems completely unnecessary, and they need to stop telling this story. But this is what they had to say. The origin of Batman and his never-ending fight against crime in Gotham City is modern mythology, but what about the story in between? How did an angry, damaged young man grow into the most accomplished detective and crime fighter the world has ever known? How did The Dark Knight begin? Chip Zdarsky and Carmine, I'm just going to call him Carmine, explore Bruce Wade's journey to become Batman in this definitive new series. So apparently we're going to go before year 1, which you're never going to top that as the beginning origin of Batman. Year 1 is untouchable. I don't know why they keep going back to this era and trying to reimagine or tell stories in this time frame. You're just going to come off as second rate. We saw that with year 0 with Scott Snyder, and unfortunately we're probably going to see something similar to that with Batman the Night from Chip Zdarsky. Obviously, this is going to be a story before he ever becomes Batman, probably with some training and stuff like that, maybe on some of his travels. That stuff's been covered too. I would like, I don't know why they keep going to that area. That's been mined to death, but it is Chip Zdarsky. He's one of the best damn comic writers that you're going to find in the entire industry, specifically at the big 2. He seems to be impervious to editorial mismanagement and, managerial incompetence, whether it be at Marvel or DC Comics. So I can tell you this is going to be worth your money, but it's also you're going back to a time that's been fully fleshed out and fully explored, unfortunately. But it's Chip Zdarsky. It's a Batman book. There's a ton of Batman out there, but there's not a ton of Batman that I can actually recommend. And this is one that I'm definitely going to be checking out, and I'm excited for, even though I wish he was doing something else. Now, we do have what I guess is being termed as some type of milestone issue. Detective Comics 1050, on sale January 24th. This oversized Detective Comics part 4 of the 12-part weekly Shadows of the Bat event, featuring some of the biggest names in comics, like Mark Waid, was one of the biggest names in comics. Dan Mora, fantastic artist. Mariko Tamaki, to be determined, but certainly is rehabbing her reputation at DC. Matthew Rosenberg, he's written a few good comics, but for the most part, he's not good at all. And Fernando Blanco. First up is The Tower, Part 4, the dramatic conclusion to Mariko Tamaki's Arkham Tower epic, with art by Ivan Reis. The villainous force keeping Arkham Tower's patients sedated is at last revealed, and this villain's return is guaranteed to catch you by surprise. The issue also includes Part 4 of House of Gotham by Matthew Rosenberg and Fernando Blanco, taking fans into the seedy underbelly of Gotham's criminal elite through the lens of Dick Grayson, and reveal what it takes for a young man to survive amongst the deadliest killers in the DC universe. It's a tour de force of Gotham's vilest villains. I'll be reading this because, we do This Week in Batman with Josh. Mariko Tamaki's detective is better, in my opinion, than James Tynion's, but it's not that much better. It's better executed, but it's not that much better executed. Do I want a Matthew Rosenberg, Dick Grayson story? No. Matthew Rosenberg is amongst the most boring comic writers in the entire world. He had 5 good issues of X-Men there for a minute, and that's about it. Otherwise, they can call him the Sandman because he'll put your ass to sleep with some superhero comics by doing nothing. So I have zero expectations as far as that story. And then finally, they talk about writer Mark Waid teams up with long-running Detective Comics artist Dan Mora for a new story set in the DC universe, bringing readers to the start of a brand new day for Batman and Superman. This is just the beginning for Waid and Mora, and for Superman and Batman. So apparently, Mark Waid is going to be writing Batman and Superman with Dan Mora on art, which is a bit disappointing because Dan Mora has definitely been one of the highlights of Detective Comics since Mariko Tamaki's taken over. We do know Victor Bogdanovich moved over from, what was he on? He was on Wolverine to do the art there, and Dan Mora is absolutely phenomenal on Detective. Victor Bogdanovich is probably a little bit better suited for it. He's got that Greg Capullo style. Am I interested in a Mark Waid Batman Superman book? Absolutely not. Mark Waid is one of the most vile people in the entire industry. All that stuff that I said about Tini Howard, how she appears to be a nice person, has never disparaged herself or the company that she works for with her personal behavior. That's 180 from Mark Waid. That's all he does is embarrass himself, embarrass comic books, embarrass whoever's publishing him with the way that he conducts himself, not only with fans, retailers, it's across the board and other professionals. So that's what I got to say about that. Mark Waid hasn't written a good comic book in a very long time, hasn't been part of a hit series in a very long time. Once again, DC Comics bringing in somebody that's absolutely spent and brings nothing to the table but problems. And that's DC Comics for you. You do get your Chip Zdarskys every once in a while coming in, but it's more than likely a return of Mark Waid. It's Matthew Rosenberg. It's it's Tini Howard. It's Brian Michael Bendis doing an event series, and it's bad news after bad news after bad news in this guy's opinion. Now, the final series, this one shot, I'm definitely going to read. This is Peacemaker, Disturbing the Peace. The breakout character from the Suicide Squad gets his own tale of peace ahead of the upcoming HBO Max show. Readers could take a deep dive into the backstory of the world's greatest peace enthusiast and the special one-shot from the legendary Garth Ennis with art by Gary Brown. Long before taking Task Force X, Christopher Smith, codenamed Peacemaker, meets with a psychiatrist. I hate this. Oh, they're doing this again. I'm so tired of seeing superheroes having to talk to a psychiatrist. It seems like every week I'm getting this comic book. A woman dangerously obsessed with the bizarre Violet past, from his tragic childhood to his military service overseas to his multiple missions with special forces. Smith has more than his share of skeletons in his closet, but who actually is analyzing whom? And will this trip down memory lane result in yet more fatalities? I'm going to read it. Garth Ennis, whatever you want to call him. He's written some bad stuff lately. This feels like it's right in his wheelhouse. Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad movie I thought was very good. And the recent trailer for the Peacemaker show on HBO Max actually looks really funny. I think John Cena is knocking it out apart with that character. So I'm going to check it out. It's only a one shot. It's a minimal investment as far as your time. Won't have to come back for this for more. But I am absolutely tired of the superhero or villain talks to a psychiatrist. Like, I get it. You like The Sopranos. Everybody did. This has been played out by now. But I'll check it out because when you're parsing through all the crap that DC Comics putting out, there's only a few things that are even worth trying out these days, in my opinion. And Peacemaker, Disturbing the Peace is definitely one of them. So that's what we got. We've got an abomination in the making, Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes for probably Michael Bendis. We have one of the worst creative changes and downgrades I've seen in modern comics history. Ram V, one of the real true rising stars that is going to be an absolute megastar in comics once people figure out that he is one of the best writers, gets downgraded all the way to Tini Howard, who I doubt will ever write a competent story arc in their career. There's nothing that has portended that to be in their future. Batman the Night, Chip Zdarsky is absolutely fantastic. Detective Comics 1050, a fake milestone, bring in a new Batman Superman from Mark Waid, but highlighted with Dan Moore is leaving Detective Comics apparently, and we get the Mariko Tamaki story that's in Shadows of the Bat event. We'll see how that goes. Feels pretty soon to have another event right after Fear State, whatever. And then finally, we do have Garth Ennis and Peacemaker on a one shot, which should be good. That's the news. It can only get better for DC Comics, right? It can't get worse.